I think the question that preoccupies, or let's say is the background of all preoccupations, is why am I here? And not that there has to be a verbal answer to a question like that, but I think that's probably the biggest part of life is, quote, why am I here? Like for everybody, you're bound by why am I here? Right? It drives us. It's like I said, it's like the background behind all of our activities and questions and wonderings.
Well, they
Um,
used to have two other questions that went with that one
mm,
during ancient Kemet times. They say, and some of this is involved in masonry, but
mhm.
the three questions that lock the lion's jaw,
Okay.
uh, which are, why am I here? Where am I going? And where
Hmm.
have I come from?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
those three are, getting into the, how does a man create a temple without the sound of a hammer or a nail? Well, we know it.
Expressions of love, 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 love.
Hello and welcome back to the Expression of Love podcast. I am so glad that you are still rocking out with me. I am your host, Soul Expression Indeed. And in today's episode, I am talking with a good friend, Dr. Simel Bey. Dr. Bey is a Texas-based doctor of acupuncture, herbal medicine, and East Asian medicine with an integrative medical specialty in pain and physiological phenomena. I'm sorry, in pain and psychological phenomena. He says, I trust in the art of true healing, and depending on your needs, we will choose from a host of spiritual tools to begin the healing process, starting with a highly customized treatment plan using combination therapies of East Asian and ethno medicine. Over the course of 2 decades, Dr. Bey has helped thousands of people through private practices, courses, and direct oversight, paving a way towards happier, healthier lives. And his goal is to identify, educate, prevent, and treat ailments that may be found in the roots and branches of your amazing tree, with the utmost kindness and compassion. A couple more accomplishments of his before I get into what we talked about is he's the founder and producer of Inner Nature workshops, including the Children's in Nature's workshop. He educates over 600 children annually on financial health, spiritual health, mental health, moral health, and physical health. He's published 4 books with a definitive history of acupuncture of East Asian medicine in the United States, currently in the works. He's the writer and producer of Isabel, a short movie on a family's healing process from the loss of their pet. And that movie was featured in the Capital City Black Film Festival in 2019. And he has a doctoral degree in clinical integrative medical specialty in pain and psychological phenomena in Chinese medicine. Dr. Bey and I talk extensively about his journey, as well as the different things that you can learn from working with East Asian and ethno medicine. And working with does not only mean treating patients, right? It also means exploring the different ingredients and plants and the relationships between your human hormone system and the stuff, if you will, inside of these various plants and medications that are made from herbs and plants, um, and psychedelic brews and all of these different ways to connect with something that is beyond what you see. We talk extensively. The whole podcast is pretty much what I just said there, including his story and what I just said about the relationship between the human body and the earth. It's very, very great when you get to speak with someone who is so intelligent, yet also so down to earth and grounded, right? In practicality and in um, the natural way of human beings, but also very, very, very knowledgeable about how to heal the body, the mind, the spirit, and the spiritual connection. So, without further ado, help me welcome Dr. Simel Bey and enjoy the episode. Oh, and before I let you go, like and subscribe if you have not already had the chance, please. And leave many comments throughout the conversation. Respond to us. We want to interact with you in the comment section. All right,
Go.
3, 2, 1. What's up, wide world, and welcome back to the Expression of Love podcast. Thank you so much for tuning back in. I am very, very excited today because right now we are getting ready to get into a conversation with somebody I've only met a couple times, but I feel like are kindred spirits with. You know, sometimes you meet somebody and you're inspired, and you feel like, somebody I wish I was friends with. His name is Dr. Simel Bey. Dr. Bey, how you feeling today, man?
I feel amazing.
Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Excuse that. The feeling is mutual. I thank you for coming on. And before we even get into my little list of questions here, can you please provide the watchers and listeners with a little bit of background of who you are and what you do?
So my name is Dr. Simel Bey. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner, cosmologist, um, metaphysician, and medical practitioner, author, father, dad, brother, and friend to planet Earth and many more. So, yes, a little bit about me there. I've been practicing for about 20 years. Again, East Asian medicine, that's acupuncture, herbal medicine, which I started when I was 6 years of age in Savannah, Georgia. My grandmother, Rosalie Jenkins, and my mom's mom, Inel Mab Luton. And so got a long tradition of herbs in my family in the southeast coast of the Americas. And so, um, I really want to just speak life into people so that they are motivated to live out their gifts that are already there. Um, and so that's why I'm here today. And any way I can be of service in that way, please ask away.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wow. So you started learning about the power of herbs at 6?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that. Let's talk about your childhood.
There was a fascinating memory that I had. I was about 5, 6, and I remember taking or being taken on a walk with my grandmother, and we were picking blackberries, excuse me. There were some red ones, and there was always some blackberries as well. And I remember this bush, clear as day, taking a few and cutting them and placing them in a basket, and then kind of forgot about that after many years. And then I was doing this ayahuasca session probably about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I did several at that time. And ayahuasca had shown me that there was a huge cottonmouth snake hidden right under that very bush the whole time. So that's when I became acquainted with uh, serpents, and that they're not really what we've been led to believe, but that there's a certain presence that you need to have, which is pretty much simply non-threatening, which is not easy. It's easier said than done, but that your presence can, long as it's vibing with the energy of that state, then all is well. And so that's what it was sharing with me at that time. So that's one of my earliest memories of picking blackberries with my grandmother. Um, there's some others when I was around 7 or 8. A young fellow there, he and I would go out in the woods and collect barks, roots, leaves, uh, pine we knew, rosemary we knew, cypress we knew, and then we would make tinctures. We would just use recycled lotion bottles and things, and we didn't have any money. And then we would take them, we would, of course, prepare them and take them to school and sell them. I was like 7 or 8, so I was trying to sell herbal tinctures and medicines at school. And yeah, so that was those are some early memories. I was like,
Wow.
second, third grade. Yeah.
You were making tinctures and selling them.
Hmm.
Entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So first, I gotta respond a little bit to this cottonmouth snake story. So during your ceremony, or I should say the ceremony, right? During
Hmm.
the ceremony, I guess you went into this memory. How did Mother Ayahuasca, as they call her, right, reveal to you that the snake was there, and then what exactly do you mean by, basically being of a certain energy, like having a certain energy that's non-threatening, um that the snakes can pick up on and basically be chill, not be threatened by you, not attack you. um so those two things, yeah.
Well, I think the answer to your first one is, I was brought up to understand that there is plant medicine from hikuri or peyote, ayahuasca, mother ayahuasca, and iboga. So those were my three plants that I was initiated into. And so each taught me different aspects of the plant kingdom, of our history on this planet as humanoids first. This is without reading any books. And then, of course, how we were helped, I guess you could say, by various beings at different epochs, eras of our existence. 200,000 years ago, before the floods, about 12,000 years ago, and then in the last several thousand years. This was all coming from there. And then I would go to Central America, Wirikuta, San Luis Potosi, different places in the world. And then I would see that, oh, something really happened here. So, plant wise, in regards to ayahuasca, this was again 10, 12 years ago. And I'm saying this is not for everyone, right? There's some who simply can just connect through breath, through light, the workings of the light body, through the Zohar, Sephar Zohar, the Sephar Yetzirah. However, that is, one must have a connection to um, uh, the Elohim, the
Mm.
light. And so these connections help one expand, if that's the Vedic tech as well. And so um, I remember another one with Mother Ayahuasca, whereas I was studying rainforest herbal medicine at that time. Again, this has got to be 2005, I think it is. And I, hadn't been to the Amazon, but I really enjoyed rainforest herbs, catuaba, maca root, camu camu, all these herbs. And so I had some samples, and I took it, created an altar when I was doing the ceremony with the group, and she took me to where the camu camu berries grow, where the catuaba grows, the ants that were growing on them, and what they were for, the birds that would take them from here and there. And I never, you know, in my life had experienced something like that. So she was teaching me about these plants that she grows around. She being, I guess, her preferred pronoun, right? I don't know, but she is a mother for sure, and that is quite, that is really there. So there are many levels that she works on the consciousness, subconsciousness, and teaching about ancestors and family and so on.
Yeah.
The other part to your story, well, just getting into the energetics of the presence of being,
Right. Hmm.
which is really connected to our gifts as humans beings. I think Sadhguru talks about there's human creatures and then there's human beings. And we've all been a human creature. Some of us still are.
Right.
But the human creature is a creature of habit, compulsion, constantly doing the same thing without thinking about it until there's trouble, until we get caught or someone gets hurt. Um, um, the human beings have the ability in the shrinkage of our brains, in the reptilian portion of the medulla area there, around the last, well, I'm say it began around 200,000 years ago, that we had some tinkering or some help that occurred because there was hominids all over the whole planet, right? The Denisovans in Russia, hominids here. And this is a very ancient land. The Americas, very ancient land. The Mississippi, Watson Break, and Wachita Parish, northern Louisiana, that built these structures. I think the oldest there, where Huey P. Newton's from, Wachita Parish, there, northern Louisiana, is about 5,000 BC, 58 or 5,800 BC. Watson Break is the name of it. And so there's a lot been going on here for a long time. And so that change in our structure created a shift in what we could become, whether that's Elohim, whether that's, we're not sure, but that light essentially allowed us to develop a presence, which allowed us to be in as the human, the be in the being in humans. And so that presence, I'm told, and I've seen, is what snakes, trees, animals, many respond to as to whether you're a threat. If you're frightened, they become frightened. What are we afraid of? You're giving me some anxiety here. Maybe. Oh, nothing. Oh, okay. Well, just say that then. Jeez, my rattler's going off here, and so the idea that what I took from that was that there's some naivety, there's some sweetness in life that humans can become if we get out of our way, and we're all facing attacks or threats or challenges at times, but it really is depending on how you respond to them. Do we react? Because if I would have reacted to that snake, which I'm a kid at the time, or my grandmother, which ayahuasca showed me that she knew all about it, but we kept engaging the plant spirit in a way which allowed us to have blackberries to eat, and we didn't pose a threat to the snake because we didn't react. We just stayed in that presence. And so that's what I mean. How do you get in that presence, that being as a human, which we have the ability to do? It's amazing when I look at animals, they're limited for the most part. They can do some amazing things, but they're pretty much limited by their nature, but it doesn't make it less than per se.
No,
Um,
yeah, just contributing less in a way, but not less special, not less valuable.
Not less valuable at all. And their ability to discern instinctually is amazing. Which humans, they can detect earthquakes and many things before they occur. Sometimes weeks before, at least the wild animals for sure. The domesticated, maybe a couple days before. But I have a cat at home. Uh, you know, but I'm careful to not make her my emotional crutch. You
Right.
know,
Hmm.
I like her to go out if she wants to hunt a lizard, if she wants to be herself, go be a feline.
Right.
Even though my daughter wants to dress her up for with the little vest there, what am I gonna do? Dress her up, have fun. I don't know if she'll go for it. The cat, she might, but um, it's really that joy though in life as well. Because you gotta have that joy in words in our speech,
Hmm.
bringing that color to humans' life is what I think it means to be a human being. Yeah.
Word. I want to respond to that a little bit because that's always been very interesting to me. The difference in instinct versus intuition. And where I think the limitation in a lot of animals lie is not necessarily that they don't have the same kind of vocal cords or opposable thumbs, but that they don't have intuition, that they have great instinct and they can listen far greater and see much farther and see things like heat, like the serpents, or how a dragonfly can see 100 and 180 this way and 180 this way, and be able to fly backwards and do all of these things. But their instinct being, so attuned, if you will, is much different from our intuition being so attuned. And our intuition and intuition deals more with a story than a reality. And instinct deals with more like a reality, a current reality, something that's happening in real time that we all share. Whereas intuition deals with a story that really only exists in one's individual mind. And the harmonizing, I think, of one's intuition and one's animal instinct is where you get masters from, is what masters tap into, is bringing together those two things, the earthly and the divine. What do you think about that train of thought?
Again, human creatures, human beings. And so instinctual is habit. It is, are you paying attention, basically? And if you are, then you learn, you get to survive for the most part. Live another day. I've always likened it to many patients here. The difference between instinct and intuition is, imagine you are a bird who goes to the same water hole every day in the wild. Well, instinctually, you know that we go around the same time, same season, with my group of buds, and we take a bath, we drink, so on and so forth. We also know that we're prey or we're predator. And if we hear something, we attune, we're paying attention to stay alive. We scatter, we pay attention. Intuition is that, this time though, we're going to go to a new watering hole. We don't know why, but we're going to go there. And so for human beings, there's 6 what they call breakthroughs. This is found mostly in the Taoist tradition. The 6 breakthroughs are what they call the heavenly ear, which is clairvoyance. These are higher psychic activities than opposed to just kind of knowing, intuition, knowing that you don't know. But it's a great start with intuition because you're getting out of your way. But we have these abilities. The second one is what they call the heavenly ear, which is clairaudience. The third one is the breakthrough of the mind. The fourth one, which is the breakthrough of destiny. The fifth one, which is breakthrough of the spiritual realm. And the sixth one is the breakthrough of what we call transferable capability. So clairvoyance is looking into, being able to, and these are gifts, right? There are some methods where you can be granted them temporarily.
Right, but
However,
you can't really effort your way into these things. Absolutely.
Everything earned it should be well earned. Everything gifted should be well earned because there is, trial and error. There are challenges, great challenges. Almost every master who has become that way has not become that way through ease and comfort. Mastery requires the example of the lotus. All yogis know all lotus come from the mud, from the filth, from the dirt to become that lotus flower. It's not a simple or easy thing.
Yeah.
And so there's the intellectual issue that many of us have, which can be quite devastating when we just rely on the intellect. It's a glass ceiling. But when you're out there in the wild, when you're there, it is a very different story. And so staying in tune, one develops certain gifts.
Yeah.
And clairvoyance is a gift. All of them are, all the breakthroughs. Clairaudience is a gift, being able to hear long distance. Breakthrough of the mind, being able to read someone's mind without knowing that person, but you just know their next move. Breakthrough of destiny, knowing your destiny. Many of us don't know why we're here. Um, uh, and of course, breakthrough of what we call um, the spirit world. It's pretty rare that someone can see the entire spirit world. But there are those that can be granted audience with dimension, which, you talk about dimensions. I mean, just one dimension is pretty. It's like, it's pretty vast. And then there's transferable capability, which is like, oh, you want to see how it feels to live on Mars or Pluto or whatever. You could easily go there. So these are gifts, and you can't really turn them off once they're on. I've known of some stories where some have been granted the gifts, but they become an alcoholic to try to shut the gift down. But they find that it doesn't go away,
Hmm.
and they're just going to need to develop it. So
That's
a lot.
interesting.
Mhm.
Well, it's interesting because things like sugar and alcohol and overeating, fat and stuff like that, they do ground you to the 3D land, if you will, just to make it simple. In a way, not that it doesn't also come with some harm, but they do kind of grasp. It's interesting that there's stories of people who have tapped into their gift in a way that they weren't ready for, and their intuition told them to ground themselves. I'm not promoting alcoholism at all, but I'm just saying that is very interesting. Like, there's some connections there that I wonder if they even knew what kind of they were doing.
Well, whether it's mental illness, right? Some of these gifts that I'm sharing with you would be classified as mental illness for some
Hmm.
civilizations or eras.
Hmm.
And
Insanity, all of
or
that.
it poses a threat,
Hmm.
right, to governments. Certain children who have certain gifts pose a threat to certain governments, and or they just wind up missing. Where did they go? Well, they're used for study. The Stranger Things, which I didn't see the series of the last series, but that's based upon I can see that the brothers have studied the Montauk experiment there, Montauk Project in Montauk, New York, which actually happened. And so, you know, these gifts, these dimensions, which we've all been given access to as a human being. But again, there's human creatures and there's human beings who say whatever they tell themselves, they don't deserve it, so on and so forth. But to remain a creature is one of the greatest tragedies ever, because as a human being, you've been gifted so much more. And as they say, you gotta to get out, you gotta go in.
Well, I don't know if it's a tragedy, Dr. Bey, because I think some people were put here to play out the example of what
Sure.
not to do for others. And I can't say that the bad guy is bad in that regard, but that's just my opinion, my way of kind of looking at the human story.
I don't look at it as a question of bad or good. I do look at it as a loss in
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
loss of life. But yes, we're all learning for from that perspective. At the same time, to deny your gift, deny your being is a tragedy for sure.
Yeah.
And it's definitely teaching you something. But once you know better, we want to do better.
Well, and more importantly, it teaches others something. It teaches people like you who are super interested in the fullness of potential, um, what not to do, right? And that even you who is of a certain state of mind now, if you fall into a certain level of despair, may accidentally make that choice, but you have that story in your mind, and so that may be the one thing that keeps you on the right path, if that makes sense. So there's a double whammy with everything, right? All good examples teach the bad guys how to bend the rules, and all the bad examples teach the good guys what not to do. And so it's like we need each other, or at least that's my way of looking at it. But before you respond, I gotta ask this: when when you started to grow up, if you will, into more of who you are now in that middle stage, And people's middle stages are at different age ranges. Most people is probably around 17 through 21. And you decided that you were actually interested in it. What kept your interest in these um, fields of study in this? What was like some of the final nails in the coffin that made you say, you know what, I think this is a part of my mission? Or even if you didn't think about it like that, just I want to do this and no one's going to stop me. What made you do that?
You know, again, the teenage years, growing up late 80s, early 90s for me, uh, hip hop, uh, music, uh, herbs were not, plants were not the thing anymore, right? So I, took a development really in just the culture, the hip hop culture at that time, being a DJ, sports, and of course, uh, you know, uh, girls, of course. But that's a part of life, right? So 17 for me, I was a young father by the time I was 18. So I had my first child, and of course went to college then, HBCU, Fort Valley State University, which was an awesome experience. Met so many different types of brothers and sisters that never knew existed, right? And so that really gave me a sense that, oh, we can still bring people together. But it was really after I graduated, and I went to Kenya, Tanzania, met some herbsmen there. I was reminded by the Maasai and Kikuyu that, oh yeah, there's a gift there that you should use, herbs, in the Ngorongoro Canyon. And so that was the reminder for me. And then I came back and I was in a car accident and wanted a different way to heal than taking Loracet and these types of painkillers. And visions again, visions of my son who I hadn't met. I hadn't met his mother yet. That was 5 years before I met his mother, but I had dreams of him.
These are
Uh,
sober visions.
these were sober visions after a car accident, in the healing process, having
Wow.
visions of these lines, acupuncture lines on a
Hmm.
doll in dreams. But I can't call them dreams; they were more visions.
Hmm.
And I don't remember hearing about acupuncture growing up. And then I knew there was something else going on with me. So that car accident was really a part of the healing path, a healing journey to bring me back to what was there since I've been a young boy. So the plant world really came back around 20, at least for me, 23, 22 is when I remembered that, oh, there's something there that I need to explore. And that led me to studying Chinese medicine,
Hmm.
acupuncture, doing a master's degree in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, East Asian medicine. Mhm.
Wow. Hold up. Wait a second there. I know that during a conversation this deep, we need. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. But hopefully, when you get interrupted in my podcast, exactly what time it is. It is time for the expression of rhyme. That's right. It is now time for me to interject a rap verse into this conversation, touching on one or more of the talking points that my guests and I are engaged in. Like and subscribe if you have not already had the chance. Comment below your favorite line from this segment and check out this verse. Healing is multifaceted, ultimately a task of immense grasp, but a path, and the math is vast and is truly so imaginative. Not many will pass, but this day and age is so far gone from the past, traveling actively at the speed of nothing to the after this, the night shift, if you will. So leave something for your grands and then before you're past the gifts of the living God and a living soul. Spirit, guide me to walk in the footsteps of the living soul, freer of sinning. So deep I can be with the snakes in the trenches, with a frequency so pure I proceed with no feelings of fear to get bitten, picking berries and tending to the garden. A humble connection with the Father, the only way to get wisdom. Insist, learn to listen. You blessed to get farther. In the world where Balenciaga, the Zelensky saga, Sodom, Gomorrah, and the Epstein Island got stuff in common, I'm in a conversation with a healer and scholar because the world needs the message for the times at hand. And what's the point of the chosen people anyway in the Bible's plan? To spread the word and glory of the God and stand against the lies and hold the truth standards to the most honest man. Because healing is multifaceted. It's psychobiological. If that ain't a word, I'm adding it in. Anyway, I hope I show my own obstacles and that if you stop me once, I'll be at it again. Because I don't quite know my own possible highest heights of potential mastery in my soul. And I hold my role modeling too serious to let my life go to waste. And shout out to Dr. Bey for today's conversation. Pass your favorite line around like it's a blunt and show them how we get down on this expression of love. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Wow. It's crazy. You know, they say life happens in a spiral, right? Fibonacci, like everything comes back around, but next time it comes back around, it's a little higher than it previously was. Man, so how long have you been really working as a career with healing and acupuncture, like your fields of study? How long you been into it?
You know, I like to say that, 20 years, of course, if you add on since 6 years of age, who's counting, right?
Right.
But because I took a break there, but the years in a way don't really matter. It's really about what are you bringing now, as I was mentioning about the being, and can you step into this moment and get the job done? I was talking earlier with the patient. He's a drummer, and we were talking about talent versus, of course, practice. And so the experience of someone knowing how to play a full set is very different than someone who just has the talent to do so. And so while one can have the experience, is really about what are you delivering in this moment. And so really looking into that now as a practitioner, being able to see things the way they are. What does this person need as opposed to that person? That's really where I am. Sure, there's systems involved. It's very East Asian medicine comprises the term of Chinese, China, Korean, Vietnamese, Japan. There's all of those countries. Chinese medicine is very specific. CCM really didn't begin until 1971 by the Communist Party. But before that, you got 4,000 or 5,000 years worth of information beginning with Fuxi. That wasn't all compiled together, but some of those books, which we still use, are still in effect that deal with the weather, how it affects health. And I always ask the students now, well, who's writing the next 3,000-year-old book? Will it be you? Right? It should be, right?
Yeah, with my podcast.
That's it. That's it.
Man, that's so great. And you're right. The years don't really do it because you can take someone's 45-year career and know instantly that, oh, but these 3 years right here, or this one this one invention that blossomed into all of these other inventions, or when he passed it to his colleagues and they were able to do this and this with it, that's what really changed the world. The rest was how he supported himself and ate lunch every day. Wonderful. So I wonder what conclusions can you make about like consciousness after all of these years of not only the practical work, but also the esoteric and altered states of mind work. that and even esoteric might not even, but just abstract kind of work that deals with altered states of mind when you are actually in the altered state, not just working with somebody and they are, but when you are. Um, what can you say about, like, the mind and consciousness in general uh at this stage of your life?
I can draw no conclusions, honestly. That if anything would be akin, it would just be that there's levels, um, and they all begin on some level with three basics, which is learning how to pay attention, learning how to observe, learning how to listen. Those things are the basis of every level that just keeps expanding. So I
Wow.
wouldn't say it's a conclusion, but I know that those tools really, really work, really, really help.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, with all the work that I do dealing with meditation, definitely has taught me the same thing. And in fact, one of the most powerful thoughts that came to me in a meditation is the fact that you've been listening since, at least since conception, right? Because right there at fertilization, you start reacting to your environment, and you don't do that without getting information from your environment. Right there as a single celled you, you start to eat and you start to listen immediately. And so that whole time you were in the womb, you weren't talking to nobody. At least not that, not the conventional way of talking, right? There's of course, many stories of interactions and things that people have with their still in the womb, or even before the one. Like you say, you talked to your son before, 5 years before you met his mom, right, in person. But uh, you're not talking. You're not doing. You're not building things. You're just listening, in a sense, physically. You're just listening, and then one day you're born, and suddenly you're crying. You're listening, but you're doing something else. And as you grow up, unfortunately, right now at least, we sort of grow out of listening more and more, or at least I'll say the herd grows out of listening more and more. There are some people that stand out from the crowd, and we learn to manipulate language, which is a good thing, which is fine, right? It's fun to play with. What's not good is we diminish listening and the power of just being, if you will. I don't know, and we become a little self-centered because of that, right? We become too preoccupied with conclusions because of that switch from listening to talking and projecting and these things. I'll let you respond before I ask another question.
Well, yeah, I think that observation, paying attention, again, listening, because there's a type of listening beyond the listening.
Mm.
When someone is speaking, when something is moving. That snake that I shared with you, every culture has a Naga ceremony, snake ceremony worldwide.
Snakes and cats, baby. Snakes and cats
Worldwide.
all around the world.
And so being able to honor that allows one to gain access to different dimensions. And there's generally, four dimensions, which is life. Life is vast in itself. Spirit, vast. The mind, and the physical body. Those are the four dimensions that we're all encased in. We're in these bodies, but can you say this is really me?
No, you're not. You have a body, and your body is you, but you are not your body. Right? Same with your mind, because your mind is observable by something that's not the mind. And then there's like you said, life, right? And then there's life. Spirit, my bad. Spirit,
Yep.
which, well, spirit, I guess, categorized itself as I am that I am, or just I am for short. the presence, if you will, behind the observer, even the presence, and then the unnameable. Yeah. I'm very, very, very interested in all of these things. It's because, I think the question that preoccupies, or let's say is the background of all preoccupations, is why am I here? And not that there has to be a verbal answer to a question like that, but I think that's probably the biggest part of life is, quote, why am I here? Like, for everybody, even if you don't know it, even if you don't agree, you're bound by why am I here, right? It drives us. It's like I said, it's like the background behind all of our activities and questions and wonderings.
Well, they
Um,
used to have two other questions that went with that one
mm,
during ancient Kemet times. They say, and some of this is involved in masonry, but
mhm.
the three questions that lock the lion's jaw,
Okay.
uh, which are, why am I here? Where am I going? And where
Hmm.
have I come from?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
those three are, getting into the, how does a man create a temple without the sound of a hammer or a nail? Well, we know it as pregnancy, conception. And so that willingness to go forth and create, it is life. Just to be gracious with calling it any names.
Yeah.
I feel like the Elohim are those are some of my folk.
Yeah. 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 Nah, for sure.
But life is it's it's everywhere, and the sunlight here, and the moonlight, and it goes through different phases and cycles and eras, and of course, naturally, with humans seeking to connect, because the biggest thing in ancient times was like, yeah, how do I not get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, impaled by a mastodon or whatever, right? How do we not starve to death? Yeah. Okay, farming is a thing. Yeah, let's figure that out. So we get calendars and cycles and so on. And you draw a circumference and then you create a circle and then you begin looking at the points and the vectors and you now have a flower of life. It's like, oh, we're on an elliptical. Mathematics, because ancient Mayans would say that no, yeah, we learned math from the sun. Sun taught us math. Without the light, it's very difficult to see. So now that we can see,
Yeah.
we begin to, it's like that revealing of consciousness with the subconsciousness of what's there. And so managing what's there with, again, I think it's as much joy as one can, even in the midst of just, great difficulty, calamity, and so on, is really the best way to go as much as you can. And I mean, they say the last 30 seconds is what really matters of one's life. And if one can be as peaceful as possible in that peace, in that moment, then that's where you go.
Hmm.
America doesn't do a good job with death, right? At all. And allowing for
We contribute to it a lot.
well,
we we put our name we put our name in the hat of death. That's for sure.
there's something to be said about like the last ice age and what it did to this region of the world.
Yeah.
Of course, it covered a large part of different continents, but this region of the world, it was very direct with the two asteroids purportedly that hit off the coast of Greenwich or in Iceland, and then of course the where another one purportedly hit where we would find um, Chicago, Illinois, and so on
Oh, okay.
there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so, but to have the temperature drop in less than a couple of months to some places 300 degrees below zero. And there's still humans here, human-like creatures. What do?
Die
Or you survive.
or you survive, right? You either gonna die or you're gonna survive. and,
Yeah.
and it's crazy because when you look into the like the history of why Europe was able to win, a lot of that also was because like the Americas are north south, whereas Eurasia, Africa, right, is Africa is it goes a little, but it's like east west, and you can trade food and agricultural stuff east west a lot easier than you can north south. Like you can't bring bananas from tropical spaces to Chicago, right? You can't do that. They won't grow, or they'll only grow for a couple months. Then you'll never get a tree. And so like the trade and the cross cultural, like how gunpowder and stuff came from China, all of that contributed to how Europe kind of won, if you will. And it makes me think when it comes to what you were just pointing to with the Ice Age, it makes me think like, yeah, like, I'm sure just the shape, if you will, the geographical advantages and disadvantages made for completely different stories in these, two, maybe three regions of the world. And it's fascinating. I don't really have a point, but it's very fascinating to me.
There's a great memory found in the tree rings, mostly in Europe, whereas in 531, 532 to around 536 is where we get a lot of the Camelot Merlin stories. Something very, very significant happened around that time, which it's all been reported as one of the most, one of the most calamitous years ever. About 18 months, the sun was blocked out for 18 months. There was no sun. Summer became winter, winter became summer. And so they never knew why, but it was dark all over. There's a fascinating story associated with that time wherein a child was born to a primitive tribe that was so powerful. They didn't know what to do with it. So this tribe tried to kill this child. So there was this master, I won't say his name, but master who was dispatched to find out what was going on. It's like,
Okay.
whoa, this is not in the cycle of things, right? So scoured the earth to find out what happened. Came to this cave, and through the astral abilities, began speaking with the child, and the child spoke with this master and says, "Oh, are you here to kill me?" And the master was like, "Of course not. Just trying to figure out what's going on." And they checked each other astrally, and the child said, "Oh, you can't kill me, but I can't kill you. So here's what we can do." The master said, "Well, wait a minute. Are you the one that's been causing this sun to be blocked out?" Said, "Yeah, because my tribe tried to kill me, and I didn't want them to find me." So the master took the child and raised it into their order. And so it was a new god, as they like to say. These stories, are profound because they deal with the realm of consciousness. Any story,
Right.
right, about any era, deal with a particular place and time that we undergo very significant, real life things that we can't explain. And so I think that we're in this moment again. And the biggest is being, again, one who can pay attention, observe, and listen between all of the distractions, connecting with earth, planting, um, working with a tree, um, um, qigong, tai chi, yoga, staying connected is what allows us to have clear intuition above the fear. And these are just some of the things I'll just leave folks with, because I think that our abilities are extraordinary when we allow them to be. But that doesn't make us any more special than everything else on the planet either.
Right. No, for sure. For sure. And the fact that
Just
we produce light, that we're not just light beings, but like we produce light. Like you may go, I remember I was meditating one morning for like, a little bit longer than I usually had or whatever, but for some reason it was quite an intense experience. And I don't do any special breathing or special imagination. I get as close to pure awareness as I can in my meditation practice. I call it meditation of the heart. And what I mean by heart is your heart of being.
mm,
And I was meditating, finished, went downstairs kind of immediately because I was a little hungry. Tensi looks at me, and Tensi, my wife, she looks at me and immediately says, "Oh, you're glowing. You're glowing. You look like you're glowing." I didn't see it, but I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, there's that." And then that wasn't the first time I've heard that about somebody. And then, of course, when Christ was said to rise, he was in a sort of glow form. It wasn't the same flesh as before. In fact, he told his disciples, "Don't touch me. I'm vibrating too fast. I'm vibrating too high, meaning too fast. Whatever. Don't touch me." It'd be like you touch a helicopter propeller that looks like a disc. It's not a disc. Don't touch. and we can produce, like we can we are of the same source as the sun, the dust that provides means for life to grow and flourish on this little blue planet. And being of the same source, there's no reason to believe that the power of things like the sun is not within us all. you know
and the key word there is, connecting with life, or connection. And so every cell in your body still has the memory in our bodies, the memory of uh, the light, if you would.
right.
And so learning how to develop it is been part of the human epoch. The
Hmm.
ability to create civilizations in a matter of hours in some places, like in Uruk or Egypt, ancient Egypt, with the god Thoth and so on, who are not just a story, but these these gifts, these abilities are all given to us if we develop them. So learning how to develop is what we're here to do. In many cultures, Earth is seen as a great toy store. And so it's kept here because it's supposed to be, um, uh, but it's not supposed to be destroyed before its time. And we hope that's not the case. But
Right.
we're all here to develop, and we do our best. None of us have it figured out, so to speak. We're all works in progress.
Yeah. How does some of your let's say deep trains of thought uh influence or are influenced by your acupuncture work?
Hmm. Acupuncture is itself a gift, again, to be able to see again these nodes, which also manifest on the planet. We've heard of dragon ley lines. We've heard of different civilizations cropping up at different places along the 33rd parallel, so on and
Yep.
so forth. So these nodes, which exist in the earth and also around the planet, also exist within human beings. We're the new kids on the block, as they say, from our developmental paths, right? As I mentioned earlier. And so being able to understand that this is not an isolated thing, that acupuncture is just to heal pain, or treat pain or treat that which one can see. It's also in alignment with the invisible nature of life, connecting again. So if one is approaching, if they are an acupuncturist or receiving acupuncture, approaching their session, their moments like that, then that connection begins to evolve them greater than their suffering, their pain, whatever they're there for. Acupuncture is to bring harmony. Herbs are to bring harmony, also expand and do other things. Herbs contract, right? When you take a plant or herb, it either contracts, it expands, it goes up, it goes down. It does one of the four. Sometimes it can do a fifth, but that's in the realm of, again, ayahuasca, hikari, peyote,
Okay.
iboga, ongus, mushrooms, all of that. But the statement is conceptually, cosmologically, that they've called the pave, the I Ching, which is where Chinese medicine comes from. It comes from the I Ching. They don't teach it that way in schools because people have, misgivings in regards to foreign things. It attacks their religious concerns, which is unfortunate, because essentially the I Ching is just it's what we'd like to call the way of choice. That's what it represents.
Yeah.
How do you choose better
Right.
in life? Because it matters. I think we all know that.
Yes. No, yeah.
Four choices matter.
If you believe in freedom of will, if you believe in free will, then choices matter. Period.
Yes. Words matter, right? All
Right.
these things matter. And so the conceptual basis of the I Ching is also what we call medical mathematics, which is some of the things I teach here at the school and other places, where the I Ching, through the hexagrams and the trigrams, for instance, if one has um, fire, that relates to the heart, small intestine. One has earth, that relates to the spleen and stomach. If that's drawn divine on a particular person, then, oh, this is what's happening with them. So we call that medical math, which we can then treat. Now, there's very few practitioners who treat like that. However, it's code, it's binary code. So one has to make themselves available to that level again of practicing. And if they don't, then they operate at the level that they are. So for me, that's the level that I operate in, and things, miracles, and so on seem to happen much more regularly, only because I'm seeking to be there at that state, which then, of course, allows me to see. But having great book knowledge, marrying those two together is
Yeah.
always a wise thing. Having a library
Yeah.
is wise, because you're practicing medicine. You're
No,
giving
and
people.
I love you for saying that. I really, really appreciate you bringing
I
that to light.
embrace the love.
Yeah. No, for real, because um we don't want to give the impression that we're so airy that there's no practicality, there's no grounding, and or the impression, right, that the airy, the super holy, if you will, is somehow better and different and separate from the grounded. And it's like, no, no, no. It's about yoking, right? So
Yeah, they're very important, because you're dealing with life, and there's lots of nuances in life
right.
that one must be able to just be present for. Now, for me as a practitioner where I am, there's certain things that certain patients I won't see anymore. Right? I refer them to someone else, just because they're more energetic and can deal with that level of life. And so that's a way of choice, right? That's what I choose to. And at the same time, if something is presented, what I was always taught, and you are there to treat it, then you must. And you use those tools, because there's an exchange that's needed to develop one on the path of life.
I wonder,
So,
Dr. Bey, I wonder. I wonder if I can get a little personal with you right now, because I mean, personal for me, because So I feel and have felt for about a year and a half, and we're coming towards the end of our conversation here. I know you got a busy day, and I really appreciate your time. But I feel and have felt for a while now that there is a block that has been placed on me by somebody else, an energetic or a block of some of an invisible nature, and where it has manifested, where I can make that conclusion, has been in about maybe more closer to about 10 meditation sessions. And again, I don't do anything in my imagination, it's just something becoming clear. And in a lot of my financial life, if you will. And it's that things happen in such a way that all of the happenings look very similar.
Mhm.
And it's combined with the truth that I try my best to sort of get the lesson, do the thing differently, and it does not change. The same pattern keeps showing up anyway, even with the openness to receiving all of the things you're supposed to do when you want to break a cycle.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering, I'm like, if I ever come through your office and lay on the table, if you think, and I expand more on what I think the block, may be, where it came from, and tell you exactly why I think I have one, if you will. If you think that you'd be able to either see it or help me either get rid of it or get rid of it, some form of progress when it comes to it, because I haven't been able to figure it out, and I'm very open and not bitter about the thing.
There's a couple of tools, because I know you have a listening audience here, so I won't get too much in your particular case, and we can talk offline about it in
For
depth.
sure.
There's words, or what we call thoughts, words, and deeds. They are real. There are times, either through relationships, breakups, curses, are real. At the same time, there are a couple of things with that. There's the curse that someone imagines, and then or the blockages and so on. And then there's the ones that, nowadays it's a little bit more, but it used to be very, very rare that those things could happen. Someone had to really know what they were doing. And there are those who do, but many do not. But with the advent of the internet, people can hire people and do all types of things. But the understanding is that there are ways and tools that one can use to make themselves more connected, if you would, where those things slide off like water off a turtle's back, or otter's back. It always glistens, so it's kind of cool. I'll share one for your listening audience, probably two. One is called this. I mentioned it earlier, called the Sefer or Zohar. They're blue books. I prefer the ones in Aramaic or Hebrew. Aramaic being the ones, and it's a gift where you either read, scan, or if you can read Hebrew, you scan. The simplest way is to scan different sections that relate to. I don't use this word much, but it is a thing because it gets misconfused. It gets misconstrued. The soul. So Zohar means light. Sephar or Zohar means splendor of light. And so the story around it is that it was written in the first century by a rabbi and his son, or a rabbi he was teaching, who wrote it down. But a rabbi and his son in the first century, Jerusalem, they were being hunted by the Romans. There are many different sects at that time, sects,
Absolutely. Yep.
of Jews or Hebrews at that time. And the Sakari Jews were the ones who caused the Romans a lot of trouble. And so they had a big fight at the mountain of Masada and so on with Vespasian, the general, which is a fascinating story about Vespasian, but we won't get into all of that stuff. Had two sons, Titus and Domitian, but they took all the gold. If you go to Rome, outside of the Colosseum, you can see the Arc, which is where the Arc de Triomphe and Napoleon whatnot used as an example, but archetypus, and you can see the whole story. Actually, you can Google it and see the archetypus, and taking all the treasures and all the stories. So Josephus was a part of that whole thing. History of the World. I don't know if you ever seen History of the World with Gregory Hines and Mel Brooks, but he plays Josephus. It's ridiculous. I don't know why I brought that up, but it's a little bit. But anyway, they around that time was when Gabriel reportedly taught this rabbi and his son, who were being hunted by the Romans for 12 years, letter by letter, the Zohar.
Okay.
The Splendor of Light. I would say that that's a really great tool to use. You can find them online, and you can purchase a set of Zohar, and it works by scanning it on a daily basis. They say a minute on the page is too long, but it works to imbue the dissolution of blockages in many parts of your tree of life. So whatever that you think you have could be, but I know that the Zohar is just one of several tools that one could use to do that, um, and remove that blockage that you speak. Acupuncture is another tool. There's so many. One can use, going to places of spiritual power, lands, little lands and places on the planet. Fasting is one way. Of course, it has to be supervised. Working with what we call wards or spiritual objects of power, but they must be imbued with power.
Yeah.
There are some objects that are dirty, as they say, meaning that they have a different intent on them. So there are several ways to do that, but I think it's something that we could talk about offline. But
Absolutely.
The Zohar is a great tool that I would recommend for anyone, and you'll just see things improve in your life.
Word. Wow. How you spell that?
So Zohar, Zohar.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the short. But Sephar Zohar. Then there's the Sephar Yetzirah, which is the book of creation, which is a different one. And then there's the book of the Ari. I know for many people, it's like, oh, there's the Hebrew stuff. No, but it's not. It's just, how do you connect with letters of light? In the Hebrew language is the letter of light.
No,
Is the
absolutely.
language of light.
Yep.
Arabic is a language of light. Of course, Aramaic, which was a oral language. Nahuatl, which we'll find in San Luis Potosi in Mexico, and the Tarahumara and Huichol. Nahuatl is the language of vibration that they spoke. It was not written, as far as I'm aware. And so the Banat, the deer, is that's like the vibration of the deer. They call it the Banat, the Banata Wazul, the blue green deer. And so when they spoke the language, it was like, that's because that's what it vibrated at, which, the English language doesn't do a really good job. And that's why, for me, cursing and all of that, just for me, just doesn't work out. So I just stay away from it, because, yeah. And, people can still be successful and so on and doing all these things. But, eventually it builds up what we call detritus. Detritus means spiritual debris. So anything that builds up spiritual debris in one's faculties, we stay away from, or we want to diminish. So that can, yes, include blockage. That can create obstruction. But again, making all the money, doing well, everyone loves you. But as you know, when you're up, always things turn. And so it's best to, in the I Ching, it says, well, you want to prepare for the eventual downturn that will come, right? And if you haven't been, then you learn next time.
You'll feel it when it gets here. No, man, yo, Dr. Bey, thank you so very much for coming through the Expression of Love podcast. I have one final question for you that I must ask you. It would not be the Expression of Love podcast if I did not ask you this question, which is, what is love to you at this stage of your life and understanding?
For me, it is staying connected. It is staying connected, essentially, because then that brings out the observation, paying attention, the listening. I'm able to be. So as long as I'm connected and allowing that light to shine, let your little light shine, right? It's a real thing. And so that's love to me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Where can people find your books, connect with you, book an appointment? Where can people connect with you?
Sure, they can. I'm on social media here and there at freeyourchi.com or freeyourchi at freeyourchi on Twitter. Of course, Bay Acupuncture throughout the social media space, and of course, bayacupuncture.com is where I am online. And I just everyone out there, stay motivated, continue doing what you're doing, do it to the best. And thanks for having me again. And give my best to your lovely wife too.
Absolutely.
Tensia.
Yeah. Yes. Tensi is in the next room. I believe she's in a meeting, but I will send her your best wishes and best regard.
And Angela, my wife, says the same thing. She told me to say
Your
that.
wife, your daughter, everybody, give them big hugs from both of us, please. And this was awesome,
Expressions
man.
of love.